Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Stay tuned to the end of the video for my predictions for NXT TakeOver this Saturday. Before we get to that, though, we start with the go-home episode of NXT before Survivor Series. As they mentioned at the end of Raw this week, NXT's got an open-door policy to allow the stars of Raw and Smackdown to try and counteract what NXT's been doing on those shows for the last several weeks. The show begins with Becky Lynch making her way backstage. She blows off William Regal and makes her way right to the ring. It's the first time at NXT in 4 years, and she runs down Bayley and Sasha Banks in her promo. Some fans try and do a Sasha's Ratchet chant, that lovely little throwback from several years ago, but that's quickly shot down. Becky calls out Shayna Baszler and her friends Mary and Jessica, but out comes Rhea Ripley instead. She asks if the man has any balls, and we have a match between the two of them right now. It's a nice competitive matchup, but during a double down, out comes Shayna and her friends, Mary and Jessica. They start beating down both the ladies. The match is thrown out on a DQ. Then Becky and Rhea end up fighting back and throwing all three of those ladies out of the ring, and that's where that segment ends. It is disappointing that the match ends the way it does because it rings very similar to what happened on several times, in fact, on Monday, but I'm happy to report that this is the only time at NXT where the Invaders actually cause a DQ finish in a match tonight. Outside Full Sail, the Revival arrival. We then have a Kaylee Ray Hyatt package. Then we go to our next match as Kona Reeves takes on Psych. Ricochet hits him from behind and he's knocked out. Poor Kona Reeves. Out comes Matt Riddle, who is Kona's original opponent. So we have an impromptu match again between Ricochet and Matt Riddle. Ricochet is busting out all the big moves early on here. As the match goes on, out comes Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura from SmackDown. They're quickly knocked off the apron, but then Riddle rolls up Ricochet for a quick win. And then right after the match is over, Cesaro and Shinsuke are back at it. Rico with a big-ass dive to the outside over the barricade onto Cesaro, and then meanwhile in the ring, Shinsuke and Riddle are fighting. Shinsuke is going for the Kinshasa, but then Roderick Strong stops him. Finn Balor makes his way to the ring and fights Riddle, but then Riddle fights him off and stands tall at the end. Just a wild sequence of events at the end of this particular match, just like running after running. A lot of wild stuff here happening. In your next match, the Revival take on the Undisputed Era in a non-title affair, and this match was awesome. Easily the best match of the night across both shows, NXT and AEW. You know, I think it's safe to say that the Revival haven't quite gotten the fair shake on the main roster that they had in NXT. Whether it be due to booking or poorly timed injuries, the Revival haven't looked as good on Raw and SmackDown as they did on NXT, despite winning championships on those shows. But I think this match here really gave you a glimpse of just how good the Revival can be when they're given time to have a really well drawn out match, competitive match, with a team that's like the Undisputed Era. I mean, this was just a great work by all involved. Funny line by Nigel McGuinness on commentary, everything on the line. Well, actually, no, like nothing is on the line in this matchup. Maybe pride, maybe momentum, as flimsy of a thing as that is. But anyway, the Undisputed Era win with a high-low on Dawson. So Fish and O'Reilly win. I loved it. Up next, Kaylee Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champion, taking on Dakota Kai in non-title action. As of last week, Kaylee Ray was added to Team Shayna Baszler in the War Games match, though I don't think they've done a very good job explaining just why she's part of this team, except for the fact that, well, she's a champion in the NXT system, but really, like, she has no history, as far as I can tell, with any of their ladies on her team, so I'm not really sure why she's a part of this in a kayfabe sense. Anyway, the match itself was okay, if it's not very long. Kaylee Ray beats Dakota Kai clean, and then afterwards, some SmackDown ladies get into the ring, then out comes some Raw NXT ladies. They all have a big fight. Kairi Sane with her insane elbow on Tegan Nox. They have a brief stare down between her and Io Shirai, the former Sky Pirates, kind of have this awkward face-off. Don't know what to do. Doesn't really go anywhere, though, as more fighting happens. Nikki Cross eventually shows up and starts cleaning house. She's the captain of the women's team on SmackDown, and she just cleans house with her trash can lid. Really cool to see her there. I think she was really hitting her stride as a character just before she got called up at NXT. The whole Nikki's got a secret, the whole Who Attacked Aleister Black storyline. She was such a pivotal part of that angle while Sanity was off languishing on the main roster. She got a really good chance to shine during that part of the storyline. So I think it's nice to see her back on NXT, where I think she really got the most to really sink her teeth into in terms of character development, which she hasn't really had a chance to do that much of on the main roster. The Viking Raiders from Raw take on the Forgotten Sons in a non-title matchup here. Jackson Riker getting involved one too many times. He gets ejected by the referee, but not before Ivar dives to the outside onto him. Very physical match, actually fun to watch. Kind of a hidden gem for me on this night. The former War Raiders win with the Viking experience on, I'm going to say, Wesley. Quick side note, I mentioned last week when they showed the Forgotten Sons hype package how like these guys are never going to get a shot as like a major heel force as long as the Undisputed Era remain on top in NXT, or just remain there at all in NXT. And so I think, to add to that, Jackson Ryker, clearly the guy they want to push in a singles capacity at some point. From the presentation, you can just tell he is that group's Roman Reigns. They want to push him as a singles guy at some point in the future. My question is, at this point, why keep him languishing? Why keep him boxed in with the Forgotten Sons, wasting his best years in this stable that's really not going to go anywhere? If they want to make him a singles guy, which again, from all signs are pointing to that being the case, why not just, make him a singles guy? Cut his losses with the Forgotten Sons and put him in some short trunks that's different color from the Forgotten Sons and just make him a singles guy, even if he's not in the main roster doing that yet. Like, have him work that out in NXT first. Like, maybe he's not ready yet, but when he is, I'd like them to pull the trigger on that. In your main event for the second week in a row, we have a ladder match, though now it's Adam Cole taking on Dominik Dijakovic, and whoever grabs the briefcase of symbolism will have the advantage for their team at the War Games match on Saturday. These two just beat the hell out of each other. Adam Cole definitely takes the brunt of the ladder attacks for the bulk of this matchup, but in the end, he drives the briefcase into Dominik's face, and he takes a big fall onto a ladder bridge that was set up earlier, and so it breaks in two. Cole grabs the symbolic briefcase and wins the match. In the rich history of ladder matches, you're not going to see this one being put on like the upper tier by any means, but it was still a very entertaining, good ladder match for what it was. Last week I was griping about how they're being very excessive, having two ladder matches in a row. I stand by that gripe, but I knew that these guys were going to have a good match either way, and that's what happened. Then after the match, the rest of the era come out to celebrate, as they often do, when they are suddenly surrounded by both Raw and SmackDown guys, many of whom we've already seen tonight. And then they all has fight, more NXT guys get involved. Drew McIntyre in the ring hitting the Claymore on Dijakovic, then Keith Lee powerbombs McIntyre. Keith Lee and Ivar are in the ring together. They share a look, and then they do a double big hoss dive onto everyone on the outside of the ring. Seth Rollins then super kicks Adam Cole in the ring, and he gets booed for it. I couldn't believe it. As he's getting ready for the stomp, Tommaso Ciampa comes out. He knees Adam Cole in the face for good measure as he makes his way in the ring, and so he and Rollins have a tense moment. They start brawling. The show fades to black, so the show ends on more of a brawl. We still don't know who the fourth man on Ciampa's War Games team is, which is interesting. I guess we're not going to find out until day of. Dynamite opens up with a rare singles match for Nick Jackson as he takes on Phoenix of the Lucha Brothers. And when I say rare, I mean it, because apparently, according to commentary, Nick's last singles match was on June 7th, 2015. That is absolutely bonkersville. Nick appears to be repping the Golden Elite with his ring attire on this night. This is a wild cruiserweight style match to open the show. At one point, Nick hitting a ridiculous German suplex onto Phoenix on the apron. At one point, he hits a Canadian Destroyer on Phoenix, kick out, catches him and puts him in a lame looking sharpshooter. Come on, you can do so much better than that, Nick. Ultimately, Phoenix wins with a spinning muscle buster. Really great opening matchup here. Afterward, Nick goes to the handshake, but then Phoenix fabes him. Ooh. Hikaru Shida taking on Dr. Britt Baker in singles action here. They say it's the number 2 lady in Shida versus the number 1 lady in Britt Baker. Pretty good match here. At one point on the outside, Hikaru sets up a chair to do a launch pad off of, doing a flying knee right to the face. And ultimately, she actually beats Britt in the ring, clean as a whistle, with another knee to the face. Kind of a surprise to me. I know that in the rankings, they're just right next to each other, so it's not a huge upset. Number 2 beating number 1. But considering how strong they've been building Britt over the last couple of months, I was genuinely surprised that Hikaru won. So who are the Dark Order? We get this very interesting vignette where we see this guy in a subway station getting picked on by these two guys. They step on his glasses. He looks really sad as he gets in the subway train. A commercial shows up on a screen across from him, and it looks very like Scientology or Epsilon track from GTA, where all this cheesy stock footage is used as the soothing narrator says, "Come join us." A lot of subliminal like glitches with like the evil Uno mask and whatnot. And then afterward, in case you didn't get what they were doing, Excalibur tries to fill in the blanks. Oh, well, yes, they target marginalized people. That's how they recruit. Yes, Excalibur, thank you. We really need that explanation. Next match is a Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. 12 guys in the ring, and the final 2 men in the ring will face off next week in Chicago for a fancy diamond ring. It's custom made, 8 carats, very fancy collector's item. That's all they tell you about this ring. I wish they'd spent more time like building up if this ring meant anything. To me, it's just very similar to like the Battle Bowl ring, the Lord of the ring that Diamond Dallas Page won in '95, and that didn't really do much for his career. So I'm curious what the significance of this ring is going to be. Anyway, your participants are Hangman Page, Chucky T, Orange Cassidy, Jimmy Havoc, Kip Sabian, Marco Stunt, and Jungle Boy, the Jurassic Express, Joey Janela, Pentagon Jr., Sonny Kiss, MJF, and Billy Gunn, the one. Yes, the one Billy Gunn has appeared here. He is an AEW producer. I believe this is his on-air debut for AEW Dynamite. Good to see him getting some time on TV here. To start the match off, Christopher Daniels outsmarts Pentagon Jr. once again. He is disguised as Rey Fenix and distracts him to allow him to be eliminated first thing. Sonny Kiss twerks for Billy Gunn, then he's taken out by MJF, who really plays the spoiler all throughout this matchup here. And at one point there's a spot where everyone gangs up on Billy Gunn, and then he does this like big strong spot where he pushes everyone off. And you know, we've seen that spot a lot before, especially in WWE over the years. I'm pretty sure this is the first and only time Billy Gunn has been the one to be in the middle of that spot. Because Billy Gunn's a big dude. He's like at least 6'5", 6'6", weighs about 270 pounds. He is a big dude, and especially compared to all those guys in the ring he's with, he is a giant. But when he was in WWE, like who were the ones who did those spots? Like Big Show, Mark Henry, maybe Viscera, Goldberg, Braun Strowman. Those big dudes who are bigger than Billy Gunn. So as large as Billy Gunn is, you know, in the land of the giants in WWE, he was never the person to be in the middle of a match like that. But in AEW, where all these smaller guys are doing it, that to me that made the AEW guys, like the actual active competitors, look really weak because you get this older legend guy who is a legend. You know, he is a esteemed veteran. He deserves the respect that he gets, but he should have been the one to do that. That was a little weird. Anyway, Wardlow shows up to help out MJF. Page eliminates Billy Gunn. Jungle Boy eliminates Kip Sabian, and you think that's the last of it. It's just down to Jungle Boy and Page. You think they're the winners. But aha, MJF pulls a fast one, and he eliminates Jungle Boy to a lot of boos. And so it's MJF and Adam Page next week for the Fancy Diamond Ring, rekindling their rivalry that began around Double or Nothing time. So yeah, it's the ring of some importance next week. That should be an interesting match. Chris Jericho makes his way to the ring for a major announcement. On his way there during commercial break, in the picture-in-picture, you see him confronting the librarians, and Peter Avalon, for some reason, is reading children's books. Jericho makes his way to the ring, and he pulls kind of a Fonzarelli when he's unable to say the word sorry for his tantrum last week, so he has to have Jake Hager say the word sorry for him, which is pretty funny. He says, next week, there will be a Thanksgiving thank you. The thank you he's always been wanting since the beginning is finally going to happen next week. There will be fun, games, prizes, a giant aquarium, he promises. SCU interrupt, and Scorpio Sky wants to rub his pinfall victory over him last week into Jericho's face and says even his high school crush has called him up and they're going to go on a date. And then Jericho with a great line where he says, you know, I've seen that girl and she's put on a lot of weight since high school. SCU then pull a Bugs Bunny on Chris Jericho's Daffy Duck by convincing Jericho to put his world title on the line against Scorpio Sky next week. And then Scorpio says he'll make Le Champion lay bitch. They have a big old fight. The rest of the Inner Circle run in and beat them down. Proud and Powerful breaking out the handcuffs, and Jim Ross with a very questionable line here where he says, oh, these guys probably have a lot of experience with handcuffs in their lives, I'm guessing. Like, whoa, hang on. Jim Cornette just lost his job in the NWA over a fried chicken in Ethiopia line on commentary, and Jim Ross has this kind of, that's really straddling the line there, JR. Like he explained on Twitter, well, they're villains, they have handcuffs. Like, I don't know. Like the only possible, you know, defense is, well, it's live TV and he was probably shooting from the hip or whatever. And, you know, Cornette did not have that advantage with the NWA, but it was, I don't know, that, in the wake of Jim Cornette's line, wrong time to say that, Jim. Then the Jurassic Express show up for some reason. Jericho single-handedly takes out Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy in the ring. Luchasaurus gets involved, and then we have a face-off between him and Jake Hager. Hager walks away, and so that's pretty much the segment. The Inner Circle standing tall against at least their primary targets in SCU. A freaking amazing promo by Chris Jericho here. SCU did their part too, but man, Jericho was just like, he was on fire. Last 2 weeks, Jericho's been on absolute fire in the promo department. Like this one, he was straddling that line between like being a funny heel and like still being a devious heel as well. So good as Chris Jericho. He's so damn funny in this. I was laughing my head off for a lot of his promo here. He's like, it's official, we shook hands. It was just great stuff by Jericho tonight. Then after commercial, Luchasaurus still in the ring for his match up next against the Librarian Peter Avalon. Avalon tells him he's going to turn him into motor oil, and then Luchasaurus squashes him in like 30 seconds, and that's pretty much it. We have a match between Private Party and Proud and Powerful. It's being billed as a tribute match to their fallen friend, Matt Travis. He was an indie wrestler, House of Glory regular who had ties to both teams. Unfortunately, he was sadly killed while riding his bike a couple of weeks ago in New York City. So very fitting to have this tribute match on such a large platform for Mr. Travis. It's a pretty good match. There is a pivotal botch though. At one point, it looks like Santana is supposed to grab the referee and pull him out of the ring in the middle of a sunset flip pin combination, but he completely misses his cue, so the referee has to stop the count, and as Ortiz is still down. Very big botch. And they try to cover up by saying, oh, Ortiz wasn't the legal man. Sure he wasn't. Santana's got his slapjack ready to go, but Nick Jackson shows up, yoinks it out of his hand, gin and juice to Santana. Private Party win the match. They get almost no time to celebrate as Sammy Guevara starts attacking Nick while vlogging the entire time, which at first is pretty funny. Then it gets kind of old, because then Dustin Rhodes shows up to even the odds. He hits Sammy with a reverse atomic drop, and Sammy's selling his groin while he's still vlogging himself, which on the one hand is fucking hilarious, but at the same time is just really weird. And so then the heels are taken out. The baby faces stand tall. Private Party, Dustin Rhodes, Nick Jackson. It was, I think the post-match fracas was unnecessary. The Inner Circle peaked, I think, during the beatdown on SCU and the Jurassic Express. Didn't need to see more of the same happening after this one. We then go to a pre-tape promo by Kenny Omega where he says he's lost his marbles. He's realized the root of his problems the last couple of months was his loss to Pac at All Out in Chicago. He says he hopes to get revenge on him and make things right once again by beating him in a rematch next week in the same city where he lost. The side note for this one is as he's cutting his promo, he's in the middle of a set where he's doing bench presses and Michael Nakazawa is his spotter, but the joke is that the weights on the bar are incredibly light, maybe 5 or 10 pounds on each side. It was funny, but I felt that it undersold the gravity of the promo and what Kenny was trying to sell, trying to get revenge on Pac, and the weights in the background, maybe it's the whole thing, he's just kind of playing it cool, he's not taking it too seriously, but I don't know, maybe that's his style. Maybe I haven't seen enough Kenny Omega promos to really make that call, but I thought that was kind of weird. Main event time. Last week, Darby Allin answered Jon Moxley's open challenge. They're fighting here tonight. Moxley arriving in a body bag with Mox's name on it. We saw a little video right before his entrance where he's crowd surfing at a show in the body bag. I'm sure a lot of people in the crowd had no fucking clue what was going on. Anyway, it's really cool to see some fans in the audience wearing the Darby Allin face paint, the half skull face paint going on. I think that's a really cool sign that Allin is connecting and resonating with the audiences. They really need to capitalize on Darby Allin because they really have something with him. The match begins in a brawl before the bell rings, and it's kind of a split crowd for this one too. Fans are both very much in favor of both guys, of Moxley and Allin. I like this match a lot. The story is Allin really proving himself and taking Moxley to the limit in a lot of cases. He's really kind of going tit for tat with Moxley in a lot of stuff. Ultimately, Moxley bites Allin's forehead, hits a paradigm shift off the second rope, and a nasty looking bump for Allin. Moxley wins the match, and that's where we end. That was a really good way to close the show, I think. And again, I think that really helped solidify Allin as a star. Even though he lost, I think that this match with Moxley, I'm not sure if it made him so much, but I think it helped build him up more. I don't think he's made yet, but boy, it went a long way into getting in that direction for Darby for sure. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite. This week the answer is easy. NXT wins this week, and yes, they may have had a lot of help. They had a lot of Raw and Smackdown cameos to bolster their show, but you know what? It worked. I think NXT was a really strong go-home show for Survivor Series. I feel it was an invasion done right, compared to, say, Raw this week, where you had NXT guys interfering and ending matches with really bullshit finishes. I think we got a lot more satisfying conclusions in the matches on Wednesday night, except for, Becky and Rhea Ripley. That was the only one that ended a DQ. Everything else was okay, they're there, but they get involved at the very end. They still don't cost anyone the match, or right after the match is over, then the invaders show up. And so I think it was paced better and it was structured better for the invasion. We got a lot of invasion spots. I think they were just handled a lot better and a lot less clunky than on Raw the last couple of weeks. Also, I couldn't help but feel it was kind of a nice homecoming for a lot of the Raw and Smackdown talent coming back to Full Sail for the first time for many people in a long time, showing back up on NXT for this big run-in thing. And that had to be cool to see all those people who got their start on TV and NXT coming back to where it all began. That must have been a fun full circle moment. No real faults I could find with NXT this week. AEW, I think, had a couple of good matches. Jericho, of course, is always fire on doing promos. You know, Luchasaurus and Avalon, yeah, it was there. The Omega promo, the weights, the gag kind of took me out of the severity of the promo of him wanting to get revenge on Pac. And the whole post-match fight with the Inner Circle and everything after the tag team match, I thought was unnecessary. But yeah, I think it was not a great showing for AEW, especially compared to NXT. But in their defense, NXT's show was go home for a major pay-per-view. So that was, you know, more effort was put into that one, obviously. Okay, and with that, time for my NXT Takeover War Games predictions. Finn Balor in his first TakeOver match in over 3 years, taking on Matt Riddle in singles action. I believe this was supposed to be Balor versus Johnny Gargano originally, but Gargano got hurt, and so Matt Riddle has been put in his place. This should be a great match on paper. Just looking at these guys, I think it's going to be a great, hard-hitting, physical contest between these two. Ultimately, I believe Finn Balor is going to win. Seems like the easy call to make. He is, you know, back on NXT now. His future's become his past and whatnot. So really to solidify the heel turn, I think him beating Matt Riddle is the smart choice. Triple threat match, Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, and Killian Dane. The winner will take on Adam Cole for the NXT Championship the following night at Survivor Series. This one's kind of a tough call for me to make. It should be a great matchup. Pete Dunne to me seems like the easy choice to win simply because he's been the best built over time. He's, I think, also the strongest babyface dynamic against a heel Adam Cole at Survivor Series. But I think you can make a case for Dane or Priest to also win. Damian Priest is a fast, up-and-coming guy, and I think he's proven himself very well the last few weeks against Pete Dunne and such. So I think that him winning would also be kind of a surprise. I think more of a surprise would be Killian Dane, though, but I don't see him winning. It'd be interesting. I just don't see him winning. I think I'm going to go with the safe bet and say Pete Dunne is going to win here. First ever women's War Games match happening on this night. Shayna Baszler's team consists of Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, and Kaylee Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champion. Meanwhile, Team Rhea Ripley's got Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, and Tegan Nox. To me, this is a match right off the bat I can see Bianca Belair and Io Shirai really excelling in a match like this. We're going to see some crazy shit from both those ladies, probably from other ladies too, but those are the two that in my mind, off the top of my head, I can tell are going to do some great things in this matchup. Who's my pick to win this one? I think Shayna Baszler's team is going to win. I think it might have something to do with maybe Dakota Kai. Maybe she's going to do something nefarious, or maybe accidentally. Maybe she's going to try and help her friends, but it backfires. Something like that. Maybe planting the seeds for maybe a Dakota heel turn. That's kind of what I'm envisioning right now. But yeah, that's my pick as a team Shayna's going to win. And then there's the men's War Games match as the Undisputed Era take on Tommaso Ciampa's team of himself, Dominik Dijakovic, Keith Lee, and question mark. Again, it was never established who the fourth man was going to be on the Go Home NXT, which leads me to believe we're not going to find out until right when the match is about to begin. And so I was originally thinking, well, there's no way the Undisputed Era is losing against what's clearly a slapdash team. And it feels even more slapdash with the fact that we don't even have a fourth guy announced yet. But maybe is what I'm thinking. Maybe whoever this fourth man's going to be, and at this point, I'm not even going to bother to speculate because I have no clue who it could be at this point. Let me know who you think is going to be in the comments section. But I think that surprise of whoever it's going to be is going to be enough to possibly offset any kind of advantage that the Undisputed Era have, and that will help them win the day, so to speak, and beat the Undisputed Era. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn as to who's going to win. I think, you know, it's easy to say the Undisputed Era because they lost last year, get their win back here and establish their dominance. But also, I think the wild card of who the fourth man's going to be, again, whoever it's going to be, might be enough to put Team Ciampa over the edge and maybe give Tommaso some advantage going into his probable feud with Adam Cole for the championship. But let me know what you think is going to happen on TakeOver this Saturday. Quick note regarding that show, though. I won't be able to watch the show until Monday at the absolute earliest, so my review for TakeOver will be a little later in the week than I would like, but it will be after the Survivor Series review for sure. And also let me know what you thought about AEW and NXT this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.